We got 13 people watching with 11 likes, 12 likes, 14 people watching. Let's build this thing up and let's get going, huh? Hit the like button when you get into the live stream. The algorithm will pick up the video, spread it around for more people to join in. We're going to be talking about how the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and everybody should be handling the liquidity crisis. Now, of course, if everybody knows about the liquidity crisis, then there won't actually be a liquidity crisis. It'll just be issues that will then be coming within the markets that the government and the Federal Reserve will be doing their best to try and attempt to handle so that it doesn't actually become a real crisis. Did I get all that right? Anyhow, months ago, maybe 6 months, better than 6 months, probably going on a year ago, the Treasury knew that they would be going into a bond buyback program where they would be picking up their own treasuries, like literally buying back their own debt. Now, this is something that not a lot of people are aware of or even believe that was taking place, but yet here it is. We are now moving into the bond buyback program that was announced months ago, and it happens to correlate right in time for the Federal Reserve to do the adjustment to their balance sheet, which would be the first move that the Federal Reserve has done in a very long time. Like, going on better than 6 months, probably better than that, going on almost a year now, since they've had any difference to their monetary policy. They've essentially sat on their hands the entire time. Everybody going through this anticipation or this expectation that they'll be cutting rates or doing, some sort of other obligation to make sure they maintain markets or something, some kind of delusional ideas out there. That's really not what the Federal Reserve is up to. Now, what is the Federal Reserve up to? They're up to keeping interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time in order to raise the neutral interest rate. That's the bottom line. Now, if you're not familiar with the neutral interest rate, that is the rate that is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy. Now, the problem with this is that this neutral interest rate was really close to zero, making it very difficult for the Federal Reserve to try and stimulate the economy, because once they had taken the Fed funds rates to zero, they were essentially out of ammo, and it wasn't enough below the neutral interest rate to actually do anything. This is where the quantitative easing and the forward guidance and all the other stuff that they have gone into as far as the unusual, unorthodox, and non-typical monetary policies would go, they're turning into the typical, now orthodox, now normal ways of doing business. And the adjustment of interest rates is kind of fading away from the real reality of the situation when it comes to how it is that the Federal Reserve conducts themselves. So ultimately, the low interest or the low neutral interest rate, which just essentially destroyed the monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve, has left them in a position in which that they need to try and raise that neutral interest rate, keep the interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time in order to acquire their ammo back. And this is where they're in this process of handling it right now, is to try and continue on going into the future with elevated interest rates, regardless of how damaging it is to the economy. Even though it doesn't really seem to be that damaging, it still seems to be chugging along fairly strong. Like, I wouldn't necessarily go into that, but the illusion of strong, there we go, it seems to be continuing on that way, giving the Federal Reserve the ability to keep those interest rates elevated. Again, this is something that we had predicted a long time ago. Unfortunately, there is a condition in which that the Treasury market will end up creating havoc within the financial systems, and that comes to a point when those bonds, those Treasury bonds, the debt of the United States itself, becomes illiquid, right? Now, what does that mean? It means that when somebody goes to sell a bond, they cannot find a buyer for it. And so they go to sell a bond, and the bond market is like, we're a little leery of all this. We're not really sure if we want to participate in purchasing that bond. That means it's illiquid. Like, typically a bond would be right now kind of sell. It is almost as good as cash, put it that way. So that if somebody comes to the market with the bond and they want to sell it, there has to be an instantaneous transaction to it. And this is really what gives the confidence to the entire world out there that the Treasury market is safe and liquid place to be. And the moment that it has a hiccup, people will lose their mind, right? So the Treasury knows this. They know they have to keep this particular, market liquid, right? Being able to, have the market be a willing participant in buys and sells. And if they have the market coming to a sale point where there's nobody buying, the treasury will be there. They will buy back their own debt. They've made this announcement. They are already doing it. They have done testing of it in the previous months, and they are going into this program. Now, why in the world would they do this? Right? And again, it's because not only is it trying to keep the market liquid to keep the financial systems moving, but also this is in conjunction with the Federal Reserve in order for them to unwind their balance sheet. See, if there ever came a moment in which that the market, sorry, I kind of dribbled on myself here with that damn coffee. If they ever came to a point like where the treasuries were having issues and you saw the interest rates moving up and the prices were falling down because the yields rise and the prices fall, this right here would be the scenario in which that the Federal Reserve would want to, or people would expect the Federal Reserve to be firing up the quantitative easing, right? To turn on the printing press and buy that debt in order to keep the yields from moving up any higher and the prices from falling. This is what people would expect. However, we are in unusual and exigent circumstances, which has changed the way that the Federal Reserve is planning on dealing with the downturns in the next recessions. This particular recession has already been pre-bailed out. So meaning that when we would expect the Federal Reserve to step in to buy those bonds because the market is becoming illiquid, right? The yields are rising and the prices are falling on these bonds. This is where the Fed would typically come in. The Treasury is coming in. They're saying, no, we are going to act as if it's quantitative easing by participating within the bond market itself. And by putting this out there, by putting this idea, by putting the narrative out there that they are going to do this, the willing market participants will then step up and be a buyer in the market. You see, they're establishing the credible threat by doing this. And this is something that we had expected a long time ago. See, like nobody knows exactly where it is that the Federal Reserve needs to be with their balance sheet. But they do know that if they keep tightening up the balance sheet, if they keep unwinding that balance sheet, bringing in the Federal Reserve notes, right? Because what's happening is that as the treasuries are coming due, the Federal Reserve is getting paid back on those treasury holdings that they have. And instead of rolling all of that back into new debt, they are literally taking the dollars out of the system. And like literally quantitative tightening is pulling money out of the system. However, we don't know where in this level is going to start creating the issues within the banking system. And now we can continue on with the quantitative tightening, knowing that there's an abundance of money in the system, but we don't know exactly at what level is too little, where the whole world demanding dollars all of a sudden steps up and realizes that there's not enough dollars to cover all the debt. Here, we'll let this truck go by here real quick. Where the whole world doesn't realize how much dollar-denominated debt exists out there, and that the level of dollars that are in existence right now still isn't even enough to cover all that debt, but yet the idea of where it is that we need to be in order to have a level of currency within the system that doesn't create the inflationary scenario that we are experiencing is very difficult to figure it out because nobody knows where that is. And so as we have these safety precautions set in place, as we start to tighten up the currency, and in case we come into liquidity issues within the bond market, the Treasury will be there. They'll say, nah, man, this is not going to become an illiquid market. If you need to sell a bond, we will buy it. And this is ultimately what the whole story and everything is going down, the reason why it's going down the way it is. See, a lot of times people want to blame it on governments or, misappropriations of funds and all that other stuff, which is totally reasonable. Like, I mean, all that stuff is totally logical, like, to speak of. But it has to come down to why it is that we have made it to the position that we are in. And the reason that we are here is because the Federal Reserve needed something in order to buy, in order to create the debt that we are now having within the system to have the liability out there, right? So the Federal Reserve's liability, which is essentially their debt, has purchased an asset, the U.S. treasuries. Now, in order to do that, they had to have treasuries to buy, which meant that the United States government had to go into a lot of debt in order to issue out the U.S. treasuries for the Federal Reserve to buy, in order to provide the liquidity out there for everybody to use in order to do transactions and pay off their own debts. Very strange situation for a lot of people to try and wrap their heads around if this is the first time you're hearing this kind of information. But most of the time, people are not going to speak in this fashion. They're not going to tell you that the dollar-denominated debt around the world is the major issue for the Federal Reserve. How do you print up enough money to provide the world with those dollars without completely destroying the United States or the issuing government by forcing them into fiscal policies that then have them in an unsustainable debt path? Right? This is the situation we're in. So yes, we are in the middle of a liquidity issue that is taking place right now. You can see it within the Treasury Department buying back their own debt, and you can see it within the concerns of the Federal Reserve, wondering what it is that they are going to do to provide the world with the dollars to pay off all the dollar-denominated debt out there without completely destroying the United States at the exact same time. It's an impossible task. Like, there will come a point in which this will all fail on them. All right, 11 minutes into it. I think that's enough. I left links down in the description for you. There's a great Wall Street article down in there talking about the quantitative tightening. Also, the balance sheet adjustments, whether or not that is, like, even the Federal Reserve is starting to put out of course, anything you read in the mainstream media coming from the Federal Reserve, like even a Federal Reserve statement or interview and all that, is 100% propaganda. You must understand it. Most of the news is anyway. I know you guys know that. But you have to look at that article and understand what it is that's being communicated in that article is the narrative that they are trying to control, because that's the monetary policy, not the interest rate adjustments, but that controlling of the narrative. So again, like when you read through it and they're talking about, oh man, we're concerned, we don't know if we did the balance sheet adjustments in the proper fashion or whatever, that's the communication that they're putting out there to the people to conduct that monetary policy. If they put that uncertainty out there, if they put that question, like, if it's questionable of whatever it is that they intend on being going into the future, right? Leave that open-ended. That is the control, because now they can use the mainstream media, they can use their statements to then guide the markets in a particular direction. If they set it in stone, we are going to cut at this time in the next future, whatever, that then will set it into the markets as a permanent, aspect, and they will start to make they will start making decisions, investment decisions and business decisions based off of that guarantee that the Federal Reserve has put out there. This is what's really concerning, is that when you listen to this, you hear a lot of times people will say the Fed has done it. They've already stated it, and they didn't. The communications that the Fed puts out there are not only just misunderstood, but they're also miscommunicated on purpose to gaslight the people into believing it, right? Like, how many people were knowingly making investment decisions based off of the idea that the Federal Reserve was going to be cutting interest rates, and they had this idea 6 months ago, right? See, it was obvious what was taking place. I saw it back then. I tried to describe it. A lot of people didn't want to hear it, but here we are 6 months later. It was obvious that's exactly what they were doing, is that they were trying to guide the markets with their forward guidance, with their job owning, with their credible threats, with the mainstream media propaganda, and it totally worked. All right. Let's see some comments here, guys. All right. Brody, thank you for being here and filling in for all-nighter with the moderation. I really appreciate it, man. Was there a live stream earlier today? No, this is it, man. You guys are on it. There was a live 23 hours ago. Yeah, it was. All right. It's almost lunch already. Let's go. Good afternoon, UE and family. Good afternoon, Guns and Cafe. I like the name. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Yes, please do. Hit that thumbs up button. We got 56 people with thumbs up and 168 people watching. Let's get it up to 100 likes here in the next 10 minutes. All right. The question is, when does Simon get to eat lunch? What I do is I eat lunch right before I walk back in. So I got about 5 minutes to eat whatever it is I got here. Okay, Simon, grateful. Well, thank you, Financial Fury. All right, Dishes has hit the like button and the send a smiley. Thank you so much, Dishes. All right, Jared, howdy y'all. Donald, peace guys. All right, Brody, hi Dishes, Jared, Fury, Donald. All right, do you think the Fed will be the last to drop rates? Yes, I do. With Canada, Switzerland, Sweden dropping rates. Yes, I do. I think this has a lot to do with like even the idea of like, like if you take into Brent, I haven't listened to Brent Johnson in a while, although we did kind of converse over, last weekend when we were at the Rebel Capitalist. We just had a brief kind of, hey man, how you been kind of thing. But, really this kind of lends into a lot of the dollar milkshake theory is that as the dollar grows stronger, the rest of the nations are going to weaken their currency in order to get their economies up and moving again. And this is going to make the dollar incredibly strong. This is one of the reasons why I think about like the dollar and gold going up together. This is like the perfect scenario for it right now. If the dollar is the last one, if the Federal Reserve is the very last one to cut interest rates, but keeps interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time while the whole world begins to depreciate or devalue their currencies by lowering interest rates, what that is going to do is it's going to cause the dollar to grow incredibly strong. We are going to find our imports getting really, really cheap. And you may find where like the economy here in the United States actually does quite well as people are, beginning to participate within the economy or the transactions within the economy because they're able to get foreign imports so much cheaper due to the devaluing of their currencies that are taking place out there. And this very well could happen. Now, at the same time, people are very concerned around the world about the dollar. They don't like the sanctions. They hear about the BRICS nations. They think about the dollar being a terrible currency and not wanting to have anything involved with the dollar itself, which means that it doesn't give them a lot of places to go to. So, where are they going to go if their own currency is getting devalued, right? And they don't like the dollar and they don't like their own currency because it's getting devalued. They're lowering their interest rates around the world or, in these other places. Where do you go, man? There's no place to go to except gold and cryptocurrencies on a lesser extent, but essentially it's gold. So here you have the dollar growing stronger. At the same time, people don't like that idea and they don't like their own currencies because they're worried about it. Then where are you going to end up going to? You're going to end up going into gold. That's the only other place to go. So as these interest rates begin to fall around the world and in the United States stays still, I'm all in on dollars and gold. Like that would be it. That would be the place that I would want to go to until the United States starts to actually adjust interest rates, which I don't see them doing. Like I don't understand why they would even want to. When you have job numbers coming out like they are, yeah, we have unemployment at 4%. That's still really, really low. All right, that's still really low. And you have job numbers coming out with like an additional 275,000 jobs created or something like that, which was more than what was expected. This is a good economy. Like, I'm not trying to say it's a good economy. I'm trying to say through the eyes of the monetary policy, this is a good economy. This is where we would want to be. This is what the Fed would be looking for. The Fed would be like, hey, man, are we doing well? They'd be giving each other high fives. Yeah, bam, man, we're doing it. Right? We got this going on. We're making this happen. Now, for everybody else, it might be a different view. Even I myself look at it and go, no, this isn't right. But it doesn't matter what I think, right? It doesn't matter what you think. And I don't mean to be like insulting about that, but that's the truth of the matter. What only thing that matters is the monetary policy's view of what is happening out there because we have to make our decisions based off of that. Right? We can't control monetary policy. We can't control fiscal policy. We can't control a lot of stuff out there, but we can control the decisions that we make with our funds, with our money, with our businesses, with our investments and all that other stuff. And in order to understand that and what it is that we need to do, we have to know what it is that the Federal Reserve is going to be doing going into the future. And if people are looking at it saying they're going to cut rates because of all these odd reasons out there, but they're only mandated to do two things, low and stable prices and full employment, well, if they're bringing prices down and employment is doing quite well, then why would they change anything? Like, I don't understand. Why would they move? It's just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. People are like, they're going to do it just because it would make your life better or what? Like, I mean, I know they ain't going to make any decision to make my life better, I mean, I know that. All right, moving on here. Okay, markets can be wrong. Absolutely, Brody. They can be. 730 jobs overstated. Huh, 730,000 jobs overstated. All right. I'm all in on metaverse and drug distributors. Just like Yuval Harry say. Hmm. China's central bank paused gold purchases. I like this, but cannot take this advice. You're not wealthy. Okay, well that's a reasonable. I mean, I totally get you, Chewy, man. I would say that too. But you also have to understand that maybe it's not necessarily the position and wealth that you are acquiring at this exact moment. But maybe it's the trajectory that you're on, right? Like, would you want to talk to somebody who has $100 million, who has no idea what it is to be on a 9 to 5 job, trying to figure out what it is that they need to do in order to acquire the things in life to have a better one? Are you going to listen to the guy who has $100 million trying to tell you what it is that you need to do with your 9 to 5 job in your life? Or are you going to listen to somebody who has a 9 to 5 job, who just got off of being in debt, who has just now realized that they can now not only have investments, but have cash holdings, can have real estate, can have all the abundance in life, and now figuring that out for the first time at 47 years old doesn't give me a whole lot of time to actually prove what I've done, but I think the trajectory I'm on is much better than most people's out there. And now, yeah, you can go and listen to some dude who has $100 million trying to tell you what you need to do with your 9 to 5 job, or you can listen to somebody who has a 9 to 5 job who's on the right trajectory. Which one do you want to be on? Right? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, I wouldn't listen to me either. What the hell do I know? I didn't go to school. I don't have businesses. I'm not an investor. I'm not somebody who's proven myself throughout, time to show hundreds of millions of dollars worth of wealth, but I have stood on stage with guys like Ron Paul and Gio Griffin and Jeff Snyder and Brent Johnson and George Gammon and a bunch of other really famous people out there who come up and shake my hand and tell me, dude, thank you for the presentation and the great job that you've done so far with your YouTube channel. I think I'm on the right trajectory. I think I'm headed in the right way. Like, I don't know how many other people would rather be sitting at their 9 to 5 job wondering what it is they want to do, or listening to somebody who's on their way. Like, which one? All right. Just asking. Yeah. All right, moving on. Dang, well said, Simon. Oh, yeah, you bet, man. I mean, I don't need to prove myself, right? I mean, like, I have already I've already suffered through the, imposter syndrome stuff. Like, I didn't know why it is that I'm doing this. I don't know how it is that I got here. I don't know how it is that I got invited on stage. I don't know how it is that I was able to meet cool people like Gio Griffin and Ron Paul. Well, I didn't quite meet Ron Paul, but I got to speak on the same stage to the same audience as he did and meet really cool people at the Rebel Capitalist and at the Silver Symposium and at Mike Zuber's, conference. All these things that are happening in my life, I have no idea why they are taking place. Like, what is it that I'm doing out there that makes a difference in somebody else's life? I think I'm just doing it, right? Just sitting out here explaining what it is that I'm seeing from boots on the ground, from the monetary policies, from a level that isn't from somebody who's not going to understand what it is to have a 9 to 5 job. Like, I know what the feeling is like to not being able to go and get a gallon of milk. I know what that feeling is like. It's not that far away from where I am now, right? It hasn't been that long ago. And believe me, I have suffered from being in such a survival mode for so long that it's very difficult to move out of that. That is something that people with $100 million just simply do not have, right? But if you work 9 to 5 your entire life and you're 40 years old and you have no retirement, you have no savings, you're heavily in debt, yeah, you're in survival mode, man. And you do not think the same way as these elites do. Believe me, they don't even. I don't even think the same way that they do now. Like, most of the guys at the Rebel Capitalist, when I talk to them, I don't think on the same level that they do. I'm down here, right? I mean, I'm 9 to 5 trying to figure out what it is I need to do every day. Not like, awesome entrepreneurship, starting all kinds of businesses, making all kinds of money everywhere. Nah, that's not even, Like, I hope to be there someday. I'm working on those things. I'm building those things up. But as far as being there, no, I'm on my way. All right, moving on. Simon, you're the most trustworthy pundit I've ever heard of. People doing what you're doing nearly always take the sponsorships and start lying. You're very unique. Yeah, Brody. I appreciate that. And man, I mean, and recognizing that, I appreciate that. Thank you. Because I could have. Like, I could be done right now. I could have that millions of dollars. I could be like, saying, haha, look at me, look at my private jet, look at all this other stuff. Right? I could be sitting there. No, I show up every day at this job because taking the sponsorships wasn't true to this channel. Right? It just wasn't. It's not why I started the channel. It wasn't what I was trying to do with this channel. And I figure that as long as I give this away like I am doing, then I'll make it. Like it doesn't, I don't have to have all that money. Like all I have to do is be able to pay my bills and enjoy being able to travel to the conferences and to do the things that I'm doing. Like this is it. This is my life, man. This is what I was hoping for and what I'm getting. And if it gets better with, more luxurious things, then cool, whatever. I mean, I don't care. Like, I mean, it's just like, that's not that important to me. What's important is to be able to do what it is that I'm doing right now. This is important, All right. Moving on. George Gammon has, you speak for a reason. You're the voice of the people. Yeah, thank you, Tom. And that is very true. And that's what George doesn't ask me what I'm going to talk about. Never once has he ever said anything like, what is it that you're planning? I want to know exactly what it is that you're planning on doing up there on that stage before I put you up there. Never once. He says, go on up. He says, you got a presentation you want to download so we can have it up there on the screen? Nope. Okay, well, there's the mic. Go for it, man. You're up. That's literally how it goes. Like, and I mean, people who were like trying to like say that George Gammon's like psyops and all this other stuff. I laughed so hard at that because like I could have totally got up on stage and would have been like, don't listen to any of these people. They're all crazy, blah, 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 whatever. He wouldn't have known. Like, I mean, because he didn't review anything. He just trusts me to go, and everybody else up there too. All the rest of the speakers, it was just like, hey, it's your turn. Get on up there, All right. Simon is the voice of the people, not the corporations. Well, thank you. I mean, and I tried to be straight up, right? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat this stuff. It is not, we are not in a position in which that we can try and hope and pray that it's going to be a better day tomorrow by the people that we vote into office or something. That is delusional thinking, right? I wouldn't even attempt to try and go with a thought like that. We have to understand that this is bad situation we are in. There is a separation taking place between the rich and the poor that is going to grow worse. And if you do not get yourself on the right side of the wedge, it's going to be that much harder, right? It's just like, it's obvious now. It is so beautiful out. Let's go on a field trip. Let's see, what time is it? All right, I got plenty of time. Let's go outside to the river. All right, guys. Because it is such a beautiful day and it is so calm out that I just can't imagine not giving you guys a shot of the river view right now. Let's finish this up right over here. Isn't this awesome, guys? Absolute beautiful day. There you go, the Megla Bridge. 4.3 miles. From Oregon to Washington. Washington's over there on the far side. All right, pretty cool, right, guys? This is where I live. Let me see. Trying to keep this one. I might have to hold this up a little bit for you. All right, we'll do it like that. How's that go? All right. All right, that's a great view. Crossing that bridge at night is a trip. Yeah, it really is. If you ever get the chance, just take a drive over to Washington and back. It is fun to be way out in the middle of that bridge, out in the middle of the water. It's really a lot of fun. Yeah, gorgeous, beautiful. Yeah, isn't this incredible? See, this is where I live, right? See, people say, oh man, you could have bought a house that was so much cheaper if you went to Missouri or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, but does it have this? Like, I mean, this is why I live here, right? It's clean, it's beautiful, it's friendly, it's awesome, and it's expensive as hell. I love it, right? River name, this is the Columbia. Oh, hey, brother. All right. It's like California, but without the pollution. Yeah, it really is. Of course, the Columbia River is a fairly polluted river, but still, we won't talk about that. We'll just talk about how beautiful it really is. All right, I was stationed in the Coast Guard at Cape Disappointment. Hey, right on. Yeah, Cape Disappointment, you can't really see it, but it is out there a little ways. And then I can probably show you guys maybe here at the end of the video. Tongue Point, which is another Coast Guard station, is not too far down the river here, a little ways. All right. How much was your house? It was a lot. Well, I don't want to say what the exact number was, but it was just shy of $500,000. How about that? All right. Missouri has some scenery. Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, my buddy, he bought a house. He has a couple of houses there, and he got them for a really good price. But there's not a lot of business activity. Is this Astoria? Yes, it is. I live in Astoria, Oregon. See any Bigfoots? No, I haven't seen any Bigfoots lately. All right, I think it was worth it. You know, the Novice Wanderer, it was absolutely worth it. Like, I've been to a lot of places, you know, I visited and, you know, checked out a lot of areas. I don't think there's any place else that I would rather be except for right here in Astoria. I mean, this is my home. I love it here. All right, how's the fishing there? The fishing here is incredible. Mainly sturgeon and salmon is what's pulled out of the river here. That's kind of like the two big sports, but there's all kinds of stuff to fish for out here. And especially if you go out towards the mouth, they do a lot of, like, you know, going out there for like bottom fish and stuff like that. I'm in Jacksonville now, won't see the 60s until September. What a view. Wow. Yeah, isn't this incredible? This is like my backyard. This is like literally right behind where I work. This is my view. You know, how often do you go to the beach? Well, I try to go there often, but not as much as I probably should. Great view, Simon. What are your thoughts on the upcoming FOMC next week? Well, I don't know. We really have to see what it is that they are going to be talking about. I honestly think that they're going to keep interest rates probably steady. They may give some kind of weird idea as far as the forward guidance going into an interest rate cut, but I think that would be I think that would be almost ill-timed at this point. I don't think that they're going to give that kind of forward guidance, because that would ultimately give a signal and then they would not be open-ended anymore. So I don't think there's going to be interest rate cuts. And I don't think that they're going to lock in future cuts either. But they may give like some pretty heavy forward guidance idea as far as a cut goes, to try and maybe, like, you know, replicate a lot of what the rest of the nations are doing out there with their interest rate cuts. But again, that's really like, that's a lot of assumptions that are happening there. I don't know, like, you know, but that's kind of like, if I was to guess, that would be something that I would guess. All right. Looks relaxing. Yeah, it definitely is relaxing view. Thanks, Simon. Yeah. When's your next meetup in beautiful Astoria? Well, that's a great idea. You know, I thought about doing my own kind of like presentation and maybe doing like the Liberty Theater, as far as like the venue goes, especially after doing the Rebel Capitalist, you know, but I've just been so like overwhelmed lately. It's hard to like focus in on a project like that, especially considering that I want to try and do like either a book or a course or something. So trying, you know, getting that going at the same time. I really need to get the book or course so I have something to sell before I start doing like these conferences, because it would really be better to have something I could sell. All right, some years it gets hot, definitely not every year, but we have to do bingo if there's a meetup. Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely have to do a bingo game. Thanks for spoiling us with your knowledge and the amazing views. Yeah, you bet, guys. This has been a lot of fun. I know you guys love these views. Simon, do you see asset prices staying elevated if they don't cut? I think if they don't cut, I think the idea behind it is to try and prevent the asset prices from moving up any further, or to try and prevent them from going any further. However, there's some stuff that they're just not going to be able to stop. Like the housing market is just like, you know, I think is one of those. There could come a time in the future in which that, you know, the pressures on the housing prices could then, you know, start reflecting into from the higher interest rates start reflecting into the prices, meaning that they actually come down. But that doesn't seem to be taking place, right? And so asset prices are supposed to come down when the Federal Reserve keeps the interest rates elevated. And as far as like, you know, being that condition that is like expected, it doesn't seem to be happening in that fashion. Give it some time and I think it will. But it's hard to say. Like, the issues that we would totally have expected were obscured by the pre-bailing out. Like all these corporations sitting on a bunch of cash before we went into the downturn, before the interest rates went up. The fact that people were sitting on a lot of savings before the interest rates went up. These are two things that weren't typical of an economic condition when the Federal Reserve would have interest rates elevated. So like the people and the corporations were somewhat bailed out ahead of time. So it makes it very difficult to understand where it is that the Federal Reserve is trying to position themselves in accordance to where people are in not only in their own savings and business aspects, do I have enough savings or am I doing enough business here? These things are very different from what they had used to be back in the day. We could have totally anticipated that when the Federal Reserve had raised interest rates, people's savings wasn't going to be enough and the business was going to slow down and it was going to be a very painful experience. Yet those things didn't happen this time around, right? So again, we have to look at things much differently. The interest rate adjustments, in my opinion, mean very little, right? And so I try not to look at interest rate adjustments as the tool, right? But the belief of it is a tool. And that is hard to wrap your head around, where it is that people are anticipating these rates going and what it is that they are going to do with their own business decisions. That right there is the monetary policy, right? And it's very difficult to try and determine without actually knowing what it is that's coming in the future with those interest rate cuts, right? Because that's what everybody is now focused in on. I know that was a lot of babbling. I hope that wasn't too confusing. All right. Oh, I can hardly see this. Oh, hey, I got glasses. There we go. There we go. All right. How about crypto, gold, and stocks? Crypto and gold, I think, is probably going to be a fairly safe bet, just from the issues that we were talking about on a macro scale, meaning like the rest of the nations are devaluing their currency. That's going to put, I think that's going to put gold and dollars in a safer position. Crypto on a lesser extent. And then even for that same reason, the stock market and the housing market here could do quite well if there's enough fear out there in the rest of the world as far as them devaluing their currency or raising their interest rates. They might say to themselves, where do I go, right? And so if you're worried about your own sovereign nation and you're worried about a place to be, you might find safety within the United States, within the stock market and the real estate here. So again, it really has to do with we really have to see where the people are feeling once these other nations start raising their rate or start lowering their rates. Right? We have to see what kind of condition that actually starts to create, and then where it will go from there. There's too much uncertainty. I can call it out, but those are my ideas, Do you think low unemployment rate is caused by baby boomers retiring? Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that also is not only does it have a lot to do with the demographics change with it, but I also think that it also has to do with the economic conditions that we are now in, right? So here's the thing. The unemployment would be much higher if people actually believed that their job could provide them with a living, right? And I think this is the major problem that a lot of people are facing is that, for example, I just watched a couple of homeless people walk by. They are never going to go out there and get that job because even if they did, it wouldn't do anything for them, right? By the time that they have acquired enough for an apartment and for, the bill paying and, acquired all the furniture and everything that it's just too much, right? It's too far away. So once you have fallen off the ability of even having a standard of living, there was a time when a normal 9-to-5 job would be able to provide you with a standard of living in which that you could actually elevate yourself beyond that, right? Beyond just the base standard of living lifestyle, like an apartment and a car. You could actually move into owning a house and owning property or something like that. And there was a time back in the day that would have been a capability, right? But now, even if you get the 9 to 5 job, if you have not already been established, like basically if you did not do well, like with your parents or something like that, to maybe have, either go to college and have some help doing that, or even if you didn't go to college, like say maybe be able to live with your parents for a couple of years while it was that you were able to figure out how to get established, get to the apartment, get the furniture, and get a little savings started. But even at that, it's very hard to excel beyond that with just your regular 9 to 5 job. So trying to even get to that level, if you are at zero with a 9 to 5 job, is very difficult, right? Without the help, without the, without the support, right? So again, like it's not an easy place to be anymore, Uncertainty makes Bitcoin and crypto thrive. Yeah. Number of wallets and wallet activity, according to Tom Lee. Okay, man, I saw this day Biden took office. Okay. And what's funny about it is that I saw this happening regardless of Biden. Right? Like whether you had Trump or Biden in the office, I don't think this would have been any different. Because really you have to think back to it. What's going on here is a separation between the rich and the poor due to the Cantillon effect. And this is, something that dates back, literally 100 years ago or more. The reasonings that we're in the condition we are today. So, like, you can blame it on Biden, that's fine. But if you blame it on Biden, then that would also have to take in the idea that there could be somebody you could vote for who's going to fix it. And I don't believe that's the case either. So I don't blame Biden because I don't think there's anybody who can fix the problem either. All right, so with this, prospects, gambling, demand should... Oops, where did that go? Uh-oh, how come I can't? Uh-oh, it's all stuck. Guys, I lost my communication. There we go. Okay. So with these prospects, gambling demand should keep growing. All right. It's been happening for years. All right. Metcalfe's law states that the value of the network is proportional to the square of number of connected users or devices in the network. All right. Dillard, you really don't understand how it works, so stop pretending. Ooh, okay. Interesting. Let's see here. Do you think low unemployment... Oh, we already did this. Okay. Rents are more expensive because of the government Section 8 set the minimum rents in the city. If the government pays X, you will not get less. I don't care how good of a tenant you are. Okay, I mean, I believe that that has, like, that's part of the problem of it, but really what it comes down to is that if Cantillon can explain that there is no better sign of an abundance of money in the system than the exorbitant leases and rents that are paid. Right? So if he can describe it hundreds of years ago, then there's no reason to blame government today for it. Now, you can throw blame at the government because there's plenty of blame to go around, and I'm not saying that, the whole Section 8 thing didn't, create more of an issue that we are experiencing, but it's not the reason. The reason is because of how the money system or how the money enters the system and what people do with that new money, and the move into luxuries and the separation between the rich and the poor. It can be easily explained, every time. Like, you can throw excuses around and you can throw blame around. But if you can dive it back all the way to these economic theories and forces that were described hundreds of years ago, then you can know that, hey, maybe we don't need to blame that anymore, and we can figure out the root cause of the problem so that we can better position ourselves, because guess what? There is no changing that problem. It's going to continue on the way that it always has. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to have to call it quits here. I'm going to go back to work, but I just wanted to give you guys one more shot here. Let me cruise. I'll give you a better shot of the river here. Hey, there's a couple of geese down there. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Check it out. There's some young ones coming in right there. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but some babies there at the front. Pretty cool, right? See? This is why I live here, man. You know, it's a beautiful place. All right. A couple more comments and I'm going to jet. That's liquid, yeah. Thanks, Simon. Thank you, Brody. Mr. Horology, thank you, man. All right. Kingdom is within. Remember that. Yes, absolutely. See you, everyone. See you, Brody. Great response, Simon. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you guys. All right. It's a shame humans are destroying such a beautiful planet. You know, you're absolutely right. But when I see things like this, you know, when I'm experiencing this every day, it makes it hard for me to, like, you know, just think of the world as a horrible place when I have such a beautiful environment to be in. You know what I mean? All right. 50% likes. Yeah, we got 135 likes with 235 people. All right. Thank you, everybody. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.